Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the MapleBased podcast. This is episode 6, and I'm with my co-host, Manny_Ottawa.
Hey, Chris.
Hey. So yeah, follow him on Instagram if you want to get more of this in detailed info and breakdowns. But this episode today, we're going to talk about a little bit more of the misinformation through COVID and how the messaging was a little off from our trusted authorities, most notably Anthony Fauci. So without further ado, episode 6. All right.
So here it is.
Let's get right into it.
Just play that little
Just a
clip.
quick little video.
Yep.
They can feel safe that they are not going to get infected. People are vaccinated. They can feel safe that they are not going to get infected. People are...
All right. So here, as late as May 17th, 2021, and Dr. Fauci wasn't the only one. Dr. Tam, almost every news media was saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. This is in May, June, July of 2021, and it kind of ramped up to the pandemic of the unvaccinated. So that whole summer, the narrative was very clear. Every trusted expert was saying, take the vaccine and it will be a dead end. We will get to herd immunity.
Yep.
If you take a vaccine,
I'm doing this to save my grandmother. I'm doing this to save my family.
And you're putting, and Fauci used these words, I don't have this clip, but he used the words, you will be the dead end to the virus. Mm-hmm. And he actually said, America is about 50% vaccinated. He doesn't expect to see any spikes because 50% are the dead end. And we saw an enormous spike in December, 6 months after these statements, 10 times more than any other when everyone was pretty well vaccinated. But here's the point of this presentation, and that is, how could anyone say that when we were benefited with Israeli data that showed the exact opposite? And let me give you you can focus on that. Let me just give you an understanding of what happened. Pfizer made a deal with Israel. Israel is a population of about 10 million people, very advanced society, excellent doctors, so it's a very good comparable. And Israel made a deal with Pfizer to be the first, if not the first, to get mass vaccination vaccines for their small population to see how it goes. And one of the conditions of Israel being the first was they had to share the data. So that's great. And I remember when Canada was very late in getting its vaccines, and I was a little bit skeptical, I was happy to see that at least we have Israel data to look at to see whether this new experimental vaccine worked. So we had some time for Canadian citizens. So the vaccine started in earnest early December 2020, and the population was very small in Israel, and they had a wonderful execution, and they were pretty well up to more than the majority of citizens were double vaxxed by February or March, well before we were double vaxxed in August or July, August. And it was seen then that the vaccinated were getting cases in great amounts as early as February, April. It was alarming. Why is this happening? And of course, that was a question. By, I think the date there is August, the vast majority, over 50% of the cases were in the vaccinated. So we knew as early as January, February 2020, vaccines did not stop or become the dead end. And so if you look at, like, in fact, in Canada, in America, who also started much earlier than Canada, there were breakthrough cases. So they actually used the term breakthrough to signify that, well, it's not supposed to happen. There's a few cases, and it's an anomaly. And that was reported in January of 2021, but they dismissed it as breakthrough cases. Well, when you see another jurisdiction of 10 million people, and these people, obviously Israel's very comparable to Canada and America in its education and everything else, and you see the vast majority of them getting COVID in February, March, April, May, and to the absolute majority in around July, how could Dr. Fauci on May 17th and every other trusted authority say without any
hesitation. at all.
hesitation, any equivocation,
yeah.
reservation. You get vaccinated, it ends the COVID.
Where you just had to look across and watch those numbers.
Now,
rise.
I mean, people can ask why would someone as prominent as Dr. Fauci, I mean, he must have had access to the data. I did.
Yes.
I Googled it. I'm sitting home. I'm retired, as you know. And I Googled it and got the Israeli data. I knew by April of 2020, I knew by even before that, but by April, the vaccines do not stop the spread, do not stop the transmission, do not stop the infection. They certainly did not do that. And there's some question, if you look at what's happened since, cases have increased. There's some questions as to whether, in fact, vaccines promoted the spread of COVID. And that was probably the case. So that's why we locked down all of Ontario in December.
Vaccinated or unvaccinated.
Because it was spreading amongst the vaccinated more than unvaccinated. But the question
And probably the biggest concern of why that trucker protest happened in Ottawa is because everybody knew at this point that everybody spread the vaccine, and these truckers were alone in their cars.
Well, that's
were the heroes the year before, and they
that's a great.
You know, so that was the biggest problem with that whole thing, and there was no conversation being allowed to happen.
Well, that's the biggest question. Here we are in Ontario, in Ottawa. Of course, we live in Ottawa. That we are in lockdown. The vaccine passports don't work. We are in lockdown. The vaccinated can't go anywhere. The unvaccinated can't go anywhere. We're locked down. There is an admission by the government that this lockdown is saying that COVID has taken the unvaccinated and the vaccinated at the same clip. In fact, I've done some analysis, and maybe we'll do another show. But I can say this, if you go through my Instagram account, maybe we'll do another show. But by December, I could conclusively, through Ontario data, prove that the vaccinated, when they're getting the third dose, were 33% more probable of getting COVID than the unvaccinated. That's why Ontario shut down the vaccinated. And by the time we get to February, March, the boosted were 200% more likely. And this is not...
To test positive with COVID.
To get COVID. It just, they're more susceptible. And there may be reasons for it. I don't know. But I just looked at the Ontario data. And it's there. So the question is, why would someone as prominent and as knowledgeable as Dr. Fauci, Dr. Tam, I understand politicians, I mean, Trudeau used this as a wedge issue to win an election. I get that. And he basically... cited the fact that the unvaccinated were the problem and used some terrible language to describe citizens. I understand why politicians divide. I just don't know why Dr. Fauci, Dr. Tam, and every expert who knew as early as the beginning of 2021 that the vaccines were not a dead end to the virus. In fact, I think by the time Canada got its second shot, Israel was already on its third shot.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it happened, but there's Chris. When I got in the 1970s, I had the pleasure of being with one of the top litigators in Ottawa, just a brilliant man. And I was just a kid, and I asked him one question, and he basically said to me, "The facts never change." And as a trial lawyer, years from now, the facts will be the facts. And this will all come out, and we'll understand why experts are saying as late as May 2021, take the vaccine to stop it in its tracks and to protect you. They're still saying it today.
Yeah, you're doing it for society. It's for the greater good.
Absolute lie.
And what is the term that you use all the time in your post? The wheels of justice?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a great line, and that is... the wheels of justice
grind slow, but
exceedingly, extremely slow, but exceedingly fine. And we will get to every one of these factual points. There will be trials. This will happen in the, I'm going to liken this to the tobacco. I watched, it's the very same footprint. The tobacco companies own the media, they advertise, they own programs, they own politicians.
All the money in the world at that point.
The PACs, they were running politicians. You never went against big tobacco. It was proven as early as the 70s that tobacco killed. But they dog and ponied it and fought it. And
4 to 5 doctors recommend Camel cigarettes.
Sure, whatever. And it took until the mid-'80s before the slow process of the law caught up to them and crushed them. And now we know. And so I expect the truth will come out. The wheels of justice will move slowly, but exceedingly fine. In years to come, we will find out why everything was happening, which was basically anti-science from our trusted people.
Mm-hmm.
There you have it.
That's it. So that's another one in the books. So yeah, we'll keep...
Any questions? I'd be more than happy to respond to.
Yes, leave them in the comments or send me an email. But either way, keep the communication channels open and let's see where this goes. Thanks again for tuning in. See you later.